Hey, Felix.
Hey,
Welcome to this interview. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for
thank you.
agreeing to take this time to talk to me. So, let me just explain a little bit about who I am. So, I'm a co founder and CEO of CurlyBrackets. We are this community of learners that learn through building projects. So, most of our students are from the ages of 9, 10, 11 years old up to 15 years old. And
Okay,
so we are a company based in Norway. And so we have students primarily in Norway right now.
got it.
But we offer classes for our students every week. And we've seen that since we put up our Discord server, we've been having some really interesting young learners join us from different places. And so we're also offering our courses online.
That's
So
cool.
if you're in Norway, you can join us. If you're in Oslo, you can join us in person. Otherwise, we teach in a way that you can really join us from anywhere, as long as the timing is okay. So started this company with two other people, my co-founders, Alexander and Annie. Technically started in November last year as a project of mine. And then they joined in January. And we incorporated in February. So we're a pretty young company. But before CurlyBrackets, I had a company which I was the founder and CEO of called BitCamp, where we also taught kids how to code it. So I've been teaching kids and some older students how to code for about close to 3 years. Yeah. So that's me. Intro. Your intro.
I don't know. I'm Felix. I've been teaching myself how to program for maybe 1 to 2 years. Recently, I've been working with Replit, companies like Replit, on various things, just kind of learning, improving my knowledge. I also own an online programming community on Discord that's kind of oriented towards education and just a nice community for people to join.
Very cool. Can you
Introductions.
well, yeah, what is the name of this community? We're very interested in.
Oh God. Okay. So, disclaimer: the name is very cheesy. It was created in about 5 seconds when this was more of a hacking-oriented thing, and we're working on a rebrand. But right now, it's called Pwn Squad. So
Pwn Squad.
PWNSQUAD. Yeah.
Cool. And anyone can join this?
Anyone can join. We have our website over at pwnsquad.net.
Very nice.
Yeah.
How old are you?
I am 13.
13 years old. That's very, very cool. So you were born in
2006.
2006. Wow.
Yeah.
I feel really old compared to you. I was born in 1991. So 15 years older than you. I think that's so cool that you've been teaching yourself how to program and that you're so young. I think they're super cool. So how did you get into programming? What was it that got you into that?
I don't fully remember what got me interested in the first place, but it was probably just because my parents have a job and they work on their computers a lot for it. So I was curious about what powered the devices they used, because I've always been interested in how things work and what's behind all the stuff I see.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. So it was all fueled by your curiosity of how things work. Very nice. How did you learn how to program? Was it by yourself mostly? I mean, you already kind of told us that you learned by itself, but did you have any subject in school, or you went to a course or something like that? No.
Yeah, I basically just taught myself from the beginning. I wish there had been more opportunities in my school to any sort of programming education, or even just other people I've been able to talk with, because I started networking finding more people to talk with recently, and it's so helpful. I just wish I had more opportunities to do that from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But I mainly ended up teaching myself.
Mm-hmm. And how do you go about teaching yourself how to program? Like if you're giving some guidance to a complete new beginner, comes to you, says, Felix, can you help me? Well, where do you point them? What do you do?
Well, for kind of web development style stuff, so HTML, CSS, JavaScript, where I really started learning was just like w3schools.com.
Mm-hmm.
I found that website, and even though it's not like the most popular website, it's very popular, but some people dislike it. I still feel like I learned a lot from it. It helped me learn all of the fundamentals. And then for everything else, I just experimented a lot and broke things a lot and
Mm-hmm.
slowly got an idea of what works and what doesn't break.
Nice. I think that's really cool that you have that true hacker mindset of breaking things and messing with things to learn. I also try to learn that way. I think that's very helpful especially when it comes to programming. I remember getting into programming. I don't know if you can properly call it programming, but back when I was 10 years old, it was in the early 2000s. With something called Flash, which is kind of on its way out now, but it was very, very popular back then. And it wasn't even Adobe Flash, it was Macromedia Flash. It was the company that actually came out with it, and Adobe later acquired them. And that was the first time. I mean, my father came home from work and he gave me this because I was very interested in making my own movies and games. And so before that, I was actually using Microsoft PowerPoint to make animations.
Wow.
So I would make with a drawing tool and color tool, I would make a Pokemon character that was really into Pokemon. And then I would just make different frames with different slides and then just play the slide and go like this to play the movie. And so he came home with Flash 4 back at that time and said that with this, you can make your own games and movies in a much easier way than that. So I started with some games, and it was very light programming, like go to and play certain frames, and it was very, very easy. And then after that, once I made these movies and games, and I was teaching myself, such as yourself, and then I started getting into web development because I wanted to make a website where I could just put all of my stuff and showcase it. So that's I would say the first time that I got into coding. It was kind of a mix of real coding and just using a program called Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
And then I got into a little bit of PHP and to make my website a little bit sophisticated, and then it kind of started from there. But back then, I remember it was a completely different world. The technology was so less developed, or not enough developed as it is right now, and so it's interesting to see how I think much easier it has become now to learn how to code with tools like Replit. I wish that it existed back then. But I still think that people like you who are so self-motivated are very much the exception rather than the rule. I think, would you agree with that?
I guess partly, but a lot of the reason people learn to program I guess increasingly today people are pushing kids to learn programming, and kids are less often want to start themselves. But also, I think both. I don't really know enough about the numbers or whatever, but I think both are kind of pretty common. And I'm seeing in the online community that I've joined, a lot more people want to learn programming than are like recommended to them to learn I don't know what I'm saying. But a lot of people who interact with the community were self-motivated.
Right, right. So I think you're part of a community where these people kind of gather. So I can see that. But can you do you have any kids in your class that school that you go to that are also similar to you, where they teach themselves most of the time, or are programmers, self-taught?
Well, okay. So right now I'm actually homeschooled. I left school. I left
Ah,
regular school about a year ago. But when
okay.
I was in school, my school sadly didn't offer any sort of programming course or anything like
Hmm.
that until like
Right.
high school, which is I think next year or the year after for me.
Hmm.
So I didn't. Yeah, I didn't really have enough. Like I didn't really know any people who were like that or who
Hmm.
were even into programming that much.
Right. That makes sense. So you've been programming for some time. You said that you got into about 2 years ago. What type of things have you built during this time? If you could just give me some projects that you've made.
I feel like my first year and a half or whatever, I wasn't getting anything done, and I've only started recently making actually useful things. I've built like a CSS style sheet that became pretty popular called Water CSS that I'm maintaining still.
Uh huh.
I've worked with digital.gov or digital.gov, I don't know how, whatever, to on like a editorial workflow site. Right now, I'm working with the Brooklyn Rail, which is like a Brooklyn-based publication, on a new website for them. I'm also working on an air quality monitoring project in Shanghai with people from
Wow.
NYU. And my main project right now is a mobile app for Replit.
Hmm. Yeah, I heard about that. I actually, I think Replit on their Twitter wrote about that, or I think the CEO
Yeah.
posted something about that. That's how I actually found out about you. I thought that was super cool. Can you talk a little bit about what made you uh, pick that as a project and why why you're building that?
Well, I only kind of like fairly recently, like a few months ago, a month or two ago, discovered Replit and found it to be like such an amazing product. Like I use
Hmm.
it for basically everything now. And but a lot of the time I'll want to like maybe fix something on the go or just code on my phone or a tablet. And there isn't like their website isn't very mobile friendly, and I wanted to make that easier for people. But also, a lot of people are only able to access sites like Replit on a tablet or a phone. Maybe they don't own a computer, or maybe they're accessing it through school. And I think an app like this would enable a lot of people to use Replit much more easily.
Hmm. So you're building it so that it you can use it more often when you're on the go, and also to make it accessible to other people.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Do you have any progress report to share with us, like approximately when you think it'll be launched?
So I mainly have just like a bunch of bugs and minor features to fix.
Hmm.
So the main things that need to be added are like the really big things. So that's like social login, but mainly just running REPLs. That's
Hmm.
kind of biggest feature because that's the most important feature of Replit, which is
Hmm.
that the ability to run a REPL and get log output. So I'm going to be able to go to San Francisco, tagging along on a work trip in
Hmm.
October, and hopefully I'll be able to meet up with the Replit team, so maybe we can work on that. But I'm pretty close. I'm over 50% done with the project, and I expect
Nice.
to release it in a few months. Maybe.
Very cool. What type of technology are you using to build this?
It's built in React Native,
Mm.
so JavaScript, React, shenanigans.
Mm.
So I learned that along the way of building it.
You also released some font tool recently, right?
Yeah, funky. I just like shipped that on Product Hunt today,
Mm-hmm.
this morning. So that was kind of just like a side project. Replit released a challenge thing a while ago, basically just pretty open-ended, build something that does something when you hit the space key. And the night before, I had been wanting a better way to find fonts, so I built FontKey, and it just turned out better than I thought it would.
You built it in one day.
1 or 2 days.
1 or 2 days. Wow, that's very impressive. So, if we go into coding a little bit more, what do you think is so exciting for you about coding?
Well, I find math and like logic pretty interesting, and I love like building things that I can share with other people. So I don't know. I was originally drawn to coding, I said, just because I was wondering how everything worked behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still doing it just because I'm still interested in how everything works behind the scenes. There's still so much more to learn. And just the community in general that I've experienced so far is very friendly. And just like it's one of the reasons I keep going.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's something that you'll keep doing and probably make it into a career for yourself when you?
I don't really know yet, because like I love programming right now, and right now that's the main thing I do. But I don't know if 10 years or whatever, I'll still be that interested and I'll still want to make it into a career.
Yeah. What type of languages, programming languages, do you like or work with most of the time?
Most of the time, I'm working with JavaScript. It's my favorite language, although it's kind of controversial. Like, it has its flaws. It has a weird type system and whatever. But in my opinion, it's super flexible. Like, it runs on all platforms from mobile apps. I'm building Replit Mobile with it, to like websites, to web servers, to basically anything you can imagine.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's I read a quote from I think what's his name, the Stack Overflow founder, Jeff something. Yeah. He said something like, whatever can be written in JavaScript will eventually be written in JavaScript, something like that.
Yeah, I've heard that. Jeff Atwood.
Yeah. Jeff Atwood, that's his name. Yeah. That was pretty interesting. Yeah, I think that's probably the language you want to learn that you can do the most things in. It's as you said, it's so flexible and it runs in the browser, so you can, especially when we're teaching it, it's super easy for us to get right to it without having to install anything or anything like that.
I would say that it's like even more user friendly and specifically beginner friendly than Python, which is super popular for education.
Yeah. Yeah. So how would you explain coding to someone who doesn't know anything about it? A complete new beginner doesn't know anything about technology.
I would say like computers are basically just dumb hunks of metal, and programming languages let you like basically tell them what to do, send electrical signals through them so they can display interfaces that you can interact with. And then programmers are responsible for writing or designing that code in these languages to make them do things. Just that generally.
That's a very, very good explanation. Would you say that it's difficult to code? That's a very hard thing. I mean, of course, that's a very broad question, that there's so many different types of coding you can do. But yeah.
I would say there are like kind of two sides of coding. There's like the actual language that you use, that you'll use to control the computer. That can be like JavaScript or Scratch or basically anything. And that mainly just requires language skills and being able to memorize the language. And then there's the side that's just the actual logic and control flow. This is like kind of the most interesting part, but also the most challenging part. I feel like it requires a kind of non-traditional way of thinking. but that can be learned. It's just that's the kind of difficult part of coding. So yeah, I would say it's difficult to code in general, but it's definitely can be learned, and it's, I don't know, yeah. It's more difficult to code if you don't like coding.
Yeah, totally agree. Would you say that when you first learned coding, I know it's been a while for you, but when you first learned it enough to be able to make something simple, did you think that, it's not harder than this? I thought it would be, more things. This is it. It's not that hard. Or did you have the opposite response?
No, that was my exact response. Like, I feel like every time I learn something new, that's my response. Mm-hmm. And then like a month later, when I learn that again or get better at that or learn another new thing, I'm like, what was I thinking a few weeks ago? I was crazy. That's horrible. I was horrible at doing that.
Yeah. I have the exact same experience. I think it can be a little frustrating at times, but I think it's a very good thing, because then you definitely know that you're growing as a person and that you're learning new things. I'll sometimes go back to my old code from half a year ago or a year back, and I'll be like, oh my God, what was I thinking? Same as you,
same.
And I have to fix this.
Who wrote this code?
Yeah, we were just redesigning our website recently, and I'm responsible for the backend stuff, and we're just cleaning up the whole application and making it more. And then after it was so much faster, the website. So.
And then sometimes I have the opposite experience where I look back on some past code and I wonder how I was able to make it so like clean and nice. But that's very rare. That happens very rare.
Let's see. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Out of curiosity, what is the CurlyBrackets backend written in?
Good question. So we have written it in Ruby, using Ruby on Rails.
Nice.
Yeah. Have you worked with that before?
Not extensively. Although the first programming language I really kind of learned was a modified version of Ruby. Mm-hmm. But I forgot.
Was it JRuby?
No.
No.
I don't even remember what it was. I just remember that it was a modified version of Ruby, and I haven't used it in forever.
Yeah. So Ruby is also one of those kind of controversial languages, I would say, because Ruby on Rails, when it first came out, 2004, I think, it became very, very popular, and it was very popular for quite some time. And now I feel like it's losing a little bit of its popularity. People are going more towards using,
Flask,
Node, Express, those types of. I got into Ruby, I'd say maybe 10, 11 years ago. It was when I decided that, now I'm going to really learn programming. So I picked up a book. Yeah. It was actually my father that recommended that I do this Learn to Program tutorial written by this guy called Chris Pine. And he used Ruby. And so I went through that. Yeah, it's a very popular book. So he has an online version, which is free. And then I later on purchased the book, Learn to Program. I really can recommend it. And so that was the first time that I, actually went through it. The theory of the code. And then Ruby on Rails, I think it does, the critics will say that it's very slow, which I think it is if you use it, to make a website that is not designed for, or that if you use it for a website that will get a lot of traffic. But the reason that I really like it is because I'm able to develop in it so much faster than the others, because the way that the framework is designed, it really is designed almost not for programmers. It's designed for people that are new to programming or are more business-minded or are designers, because it has this approach of let's just agree that there are some best way of doing things, And then
Yeah.
if you want to do it a different way, that's fine, but we'll make it really easy for you to, do the things that you need. And so if you want to do user authentication and, simple file uploads and messaging and things like that, you really can get up a website in a weekend. And I think that's why it's so popular. And even, even really big websites right now, Twitch and SoundCloud and a lot of those, Airbnb still have a Ruby backend, Ruby on Rails. So it's still very much used.
Yeah, I've been meaning to check out Ruby on Rails for a while.
Yeah. We're probably going to make a course on it for CurlyBrackets students that will take you from beginner level to making a complete website with, all the basic features that you...
Maybe I will check that out.
Yeah, I'll let you know later on about more information about that. Let's see. So, yes. So you said that you are homeschooled. Now, that's especially for our viewers in Norway, that is a very, very unusual thing because here no one really is homeschooled, I will say. That kind of the law requires you to attend regular school. And in very specific circumstances will you get an exception to that rule. So can you talk a little bit about how it is to be homeschooled compared to going to a regular school as you were before?
So, I mean, it's basically completely different. Instead of kind of going to one central area every day and going through a fixed course, I kind of just like travel around to different teachers or tutors, whatever you want to call them, and learn whatever they think I should learn that day. And I feel like I'm learning a lot more at a much faster pace.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting because that's one of the things that I wish I had in school was that sometimes we were supposed to learn something for 2 months and I got it the first day. And then the rest of the time I was basically just, kind of bored to death in class, having to do this, similar exercises over and over again, listen to the same things over and over again.
Yeah.
And the fact that the whole system is so fixed and you have 30 kids in the same class and really the pacing that the teacher controls or the school system controls, you can say, is maybe optimal for just 2 or 3 kids out of 30. But the rest are kind of forced to be at that pace.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you there. Yeah.
Yeah. My last school, the school I was at before I was homeschooled, had completely wacky pacing. Like some classes would be like that, going super slowly. But for example, history class, they decided that every year they would repeat basically the same exact curriculum at the same amount of detail, starting from the Big Bang at the beginning of the year to current day at the end of the year. Meaning you would go through like periods, like centuries in a week.
Wow. Covering 13.7 billion years in a school year. Wow. That's very ambitious. I have the same experience. There were some subjects where I was, I was very bored most of the time. And then there were others where it was going way too fast for me. And I just lost interest. And it was also a combination of, it going too fast and the teacher not being the greatest. So, yeah. The way we try to solve that in our classes is that we have 2 things. We have the weekly classes that we run for the most interested students, and there we'll have about 12 students in the same class. And so, of course, as I said before, we have the online students joining us and then the in-person. They really are having the same experience as far as the teaching is concerned. But because we know that we have, all have different paces that we like to go at, we'll make videos for our students. So we'll ask our students, what do you like to learn? What would you like to build? And then once we have a couple of students wanting to do the same thing, we'll go ahead and make a video series. And that video series could be 5-10 hours. And then, so you're watching the videos by yourself in class, and then the teacher is there to answer any questions, or if you need anything or any guidance or anything like that, or you want any opinion about what should I do here, what type of decision should I make here, if you want anything help like that. That has worked quite well. We've been doing it for a couple of months now, and our students have told us that they really like it, because before we were having the exact same problem as you described, was that all the time whenever because we run these summer camps too, holiday camps during and there you would have 12 kids, and some of them had programmed loads before, and others were complete beginners. And the problem would be that they would be bored for most of the time, even though they liked the experience, meeting other kids and all that. They were still not learning enough. So something that we, is there? Let's see. So we've been talking about coding and learning by yourself, and you're obviously very good at that. But do you have any opinions about? So we talked a little bit about how everyone is talking about coding, and coding is something important. Schools are implementing it into their curriculums. Even in Norway, they have introduced programming subjects. But the feedback that I've been getting from the students that have taken it, that come to our classes, that it's not the best. I mean, some of them even will say that I know more than the teacher, and the teacher isn't really able to help me. And I feel like so far, at least in Norway, it's been a bit of a failure. So if you were in charge of the curriculum, do you have any thoughts on what you would do to try to get coding into schools so that more kids would learn it, or be exposed to it?
I'll first say that I don't know enough about this, but I feel like it's really hard to do a coding curriculum, because coding is something where there are so many different kinds of, like, people's brains work differently. People learn quicker or slower at completely different levels. Some people have been doing it for years. Some people have never, some people don't know how a computer works, or haven't touched an iPad or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It's super hard to teach, to come up with a concrete curriculum that you can just teach people. So, and it's hard to have one-on-one lessons or whatever, because you need tons of teachers who are all knowledgeable, and that's hard to find. So I'm not really sure what the solution is, because online it's great because you can just skip ahead, you can skip things, you can jump to where you want to be. But in a curriculum, it's all just like a group of people or a few groups of people. So I'm not really sure how to solve that. I mean, maybe you could have kids and in a group having tasks to do or something. I don't even know. But have each kid kind of tutored separately in the class. So maybe a teacher or a few teachers cycling around, but then there's not enough attention devoted to each person. So
it's a very difficult question. I don't think there is any solution, because it's very complicated, and I think the bigger problem is in my opinion, there are many things that don't really work very well with the current school system as we know it. So it's a broken system, and you're trying to introduce something new in an already broken system. So it's it's a very kind of complicated problem. I do think that for most students, and this has been my experience having taught about a bit more than 300 students now, is that unless you can show them why coding is important to them, then you even have difficulties getting them to care. I mean, I think for teachers, a big problem is that their students just don't care about what's being taught. And I think that is the first step to teaching someone something, is that, and that really has to be done at an individual basis. So if you have a kid in class that, all he wants to do is play Fortnite and think about that game, then I think for that student, you can make coding into something that would, satisfy that interest that he has in Fortnite, similar with Minecraft or whatever other subject or, interests they have. So what we try to do is that we really try to show them that you already kind of know a bit about coding, because, it really is the thing that controls our lives to a high degree. And if you really think about it, coders are some of the, people that have the most influence in our world right now, because they're the ones that are coding the services that we use and the algorithms that are behind those. The fact that you get a certain video as a recommendation on YouTube or Netflix is due to, some decisions that have been made by mostly coders. It's very important. And so when you put it that way and you take them kind of on this journey that, this is how it works, and like this is how specifically the apps that you use and the games you play work, I think that is, much easier for them to first understand, and then they say, okay, now I really want to learn about this. So I think as far as I know, in schools, what they do is that they basically take university level computer science and then just create a textbook, and then just give these kids this textbook and say, okay, we're going to teach it like a regular subject like math, which most people hate anyway. And then when they're doing the problems, they're, solving problems like, create an array using a for loop and then add this and add that. And it's just, there's no connection to reality. So if you make it something into, you don't just learn to code necessarily, but if you want to build something, that coding can get you there. So that's why we always try to do it project based. So we'll come up with something that we can build, and then we'll figure out how to do it. It's been effective for us. I think if that was more the attitude, maybe it would have had more success.
In my opinion, coding is a super important skill, because almost everything now is digital and it affects so many things about us. But at the same time, not everybody has to learn how to code. I don't believe it should be taught like English, where it's just something that everybody should learn and everybody has to learn. I think people should be able to understand the importance of it, but also make their own decisions on whether or not they want to learn. And if they want to learn, then that's a great incentive, and they'll learn much more rapidly. And if you want to learn something, you'll learn it. But if you don't
absolutely
really want to,
and what I feel like what's happening with this push into everyone has to learn coding is that a lot of people that maybe don't have any interest, that really don't need it that much, are being really put off by it because they're exposed to it in a horrible way and against their will. And then they say, oh, this is what coding is. I'm definitely not doing that anymore. Whereas if they weren't forced into it, maybe they would change their major into CS or something like that later on in university. Maybe, maybe not. But that probably is going to make the probability go down a lot that they're going to do something like that. So completely agree with, absolutely. Yeah. Let's see. So do you play any games? Are you a gamer?
I'm not a gamer. I don't play a lot of games and don't enjoy gaming a lot. But if I'm going to play a game, I'm going to play Minecraft because I just love the idea of the sandbox world where you can basically do anything in creative mode. And I find Redstone, the idea of virtual circuits, basically, virtual electricity where you can build anything from a door to a computer, super intriguing. I want to learn more about that.
Yeah. I actually want to learn more about that because I know that Minecraft, you can do some programming in Minecraft using those things, and I know some people have been using that to teach people how to code. So I think that's super interesting.
Redstone is interesting because it's like taking everything to the basics. It's not even programming per se. It's just circuits. It's basically electrical circuits, and you build everything from scratch. But I've seen people building like entirely functional computers, and that takes months.
Wow.
Months of building, but that's like an amazing thing.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Like computers you can then program.
Yeah. What did you call that? Redstone?
Yeah, Redstone.
Mm-hmm. So is this something that you need to get on top of Minecraft, or?
No, it just built into Minecraft. I think that's what's so amazing.
Nice. I'm going to look into that definitely because that sounds super interesting. So let's see. What type of things would you like to build in the future? So let's say that we go into 2029, 10 years from now. You're 23 years old. What type of things are you hoping to work on and to spend your time on?
I keep coming up with ideas, like everything from news aggregators to like web browsers to operating systems that are all kind of good ideas right now. But I feel like once I wrap up all of the projects I'm doing right now, I'm going to have a completely different mindset and want to do something completely different. So right now, I don't know what my future self will think, even though I have some ideas. But like, I might want to make a game. I might want to make a website. I might want to start a company. Who knows? I don't know.
So have you done any projects with other people? Have you done any coding projects where you've not been the only one doing it?
Not enough. I've been teaching myself, and I've kind of been mostly just like a lone wolf making projects to learn new things, but not really working with anybody. I started like 2 projects with other people a while ago, but neither of them really succeeded or turned into something. And I want to continue them at a later point, but right now they're just not really the right thing to make. But that Discord community I told you about that I run, I have some amazing staff members that have joined and spoke out as members of the community, and they're super amazing people and super helpful, and that's an amazing experience. Water CSS, which I've been maintaining, there are like 2 maintainers, specifically I think Kyle JRP or Kyle JP has just been such an amazing member of the community, helping me organize issues and stuff. And that, I guess that counts as working with other people, and that's amazing. That's been an amazing experience so far. But I want to do that more in the future.
Yeah, you said that your Discord server is open to anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah? Maybe you can give me the invite link for it, and then we can put it in the video later on. Yeah. If anyone wants to join. And then you also have, you're also pretty active on Twitter, right?
Yes.
So we'll also put a kind of a link to that in the video.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much, Felix. It was really nice talking to you. I really enjoyed it. You seem like a very, very interesting person. And I'm really looking forward to that REPL application that you're working on, and then all the other things that you're going to build. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for talking to me.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I had a really good time.
So did I.
So I'm just going to add the recording there.